Welcome back to Uncovered. Today you have just me and Steph here again.
It's been a while.
Yes, kind of like how it started. We've had some amazing guests on, which has been really great. And this season has been all about getting other people on and chatting about heaps of different topics. But today we are doing something a little bit like what we started. So just us two. And we are going to talk about poll in terms of like a business aspect. So this is Steph's forte, or just say this is
my domain.
With comparing both of us, it's more Steph's area of expertise compared to me. But we've had quite a few listener requests about the business side of poll and how to make poll a business profitable and
there's been quite a bit of chat, and even on our TikTok we've had people like the studio TikTok, like how do you start a studio, I think this is important regardless of your situation. If you're in poll, this is still a really good episode to listen to, because I think it's going to help you get an insight to your studio regardless if you're just a student. Like, I think it's really important that students understand their studios and studios understand their students. So if you just went, I don't want to know about business, you still need to listen. I think you will still get a lot out of it.
And at the end of the day, like, you come into your studio and sometimes for most people it's their happy place, but you do have to understand as well that it is a business, and depending on what studio you go to, it might be run more like a business, it might be run more like a community group. So it would be really helpful for everyone to have that little bit of a high level understanding of what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So Steph, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your experience in business?
Yeah, I think probably important if I'm going to be throwing out business information or recommendations or just talking about it. So yes, I have only owned a studio just a little bit over 18 months, and I did not start that studio. So I actually brought what they call an ongoing concern in business world. So it was something that was already in existence. However, my experience with business goes way back. So I've been working in and around businesses since I was about 21. So we're sitting like a little bit over a decade now. Started off in a product called data finance, which is most banks and financiers will offer this. And that is small to large businesses that can, data finance is pretty difficult to explain. If you go and get your clothes from, let's say, Ra Designs as a studio owner, and they're like, here's your invoice, you paid in 30 days. Ra has to wait 30 days to get paid.
Yeah. If
you have this particular product, which is data finance, invoice finance, you get paid 80% of that up front, and the further 20% when the studio pays you. So what that means is that I got really good at understanding business from a couple of different areas. One, how they can commit fraud.
Yeah.
I know how you can do that with that product very well. I've seen it happen. But two, how they should operate. And one of my last roles in that department was actually auditing businesses. So I would go into small mum and dad businesses, which, only turnover, which is how much they make, revenue, turnover a couple of $100,000 a year, to big multi-million-dollar businesses. And I would complete an audit. So that was understanding how they ran their business and making sure they didn't commit fraud. That's a big risk factor with the particular product. So
so you've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff previously.
Yep.
So because I have zero business experience. I do some online training for people, and Steph's always asking me about it, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't have any processes or policies. I'm like, that just goes over my head.
Yeah, so I come from a very corporate world.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the challenges coming into a very small business is I have a lot of corporate sense. But on top of that, I've also just graduated my Master's of Business Administration. So that focuses a lot on business administration. I have a very good high level understanding of all the elements of business. I took mine into a HR specialty because I was more passionate about that. And before I decided to buy the studio, I really wanted to make impact in corporate organizations and remove toxicity sort of thing. So Yeah.
So for an MBA, what other areas, like is there specialties you can go into? Is that
it depends on the university. So I studied through the Queensland University of Technology, and their MBA program generally has a strategy and a leadership specialty. That's what it is. And what I did was I decided not to take those additional strategy subjects, and I went and did subjects in the Masters of Human Resources. So
okay,
I did like a coaching subject, a change subject, and like just a general HR understanding subject. So if you have an MBA, you know, you're generally being looked at for leadership positions. That's why a lot of people probably do it. You want that general understanding of how businesses run so you can talk to executives, you can talk to boards. Like you'll find a lot of people who do MBAs generally go into quite high positions in large organizations.
So not necessarily creating their own business.
You can.
You can.
But there is an entrepreneurial element to an MBA.
Okay.
So we did do an MBA we did do an entrepreneur subject. We did a design thinking subject. And these subjects help get your brain thinking of new and innovative ideas.
And I guess at the end of the day, there'd be so many studio owners out there that don't have an MBA. Would you say that it's something that's necessary? No,
it's definitely not.
It's just Steph wanting to.
This was before Steph decided to buy a business.
Oh yes, this is before Steph. So what were you intending to do with it to start with?
Originally I did it just because I needed to move up.
Yeah.
I wanted to move up and I was being challenged. I worked for a bank. They have very old school thoughts and processes. So I was being challenged because I didn't have a degree. So I don't have an undergrad. I started my business one and dropped out. But an MBA, you just need leadership experience.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of leadership experience. So I was able to get in with that. No, to be a business owner, you do not need an MBA.
Yeah.
Not at all. I've seen really intelligent people run really shit businesses and really dumb people run really successful businesses. So it just comes down to having the right product and understanding what need you're filling in the world and being able to do that really, really well.
So then how do you go about making a successful pole studio business then? I guess this is what our episode is all about, and the ins and outs, and I guess what you kind of have to think about.
I think the original request was about profit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dive into profit. I will touch on pricing, but I'm not going to dive into profit because there's so many factors in there, and I'm not an accountant. So I have a very general understanding of bookkeeping, accounting, those types of things. I have what I need to know.
Yeah.
But that's probably a really good question for your accountant. Where are you spending your money? How are you making your money? If you're spending more money than you're making, you're not making money.
Yeah, because I was like, that sounds like it's like the nitty gritty sort of.
Yeah, you probably want someone to go through and give you a budget and these types of things. So I think the best place to start is like, why did you start a pole studio? We always start with the why in almost everything we do.
Yeah.
It's really important, guys. And Renee touched on something really early about, you know, we're community, but we're a business. These two lines actually blur a lot.
Yeah.
Like there is, there's a lady on Instagram. She no longer goes under this name. She's gone off to do her own thing, but she was called the 6 Figure Studio. And she went on and did this huge IGTV thing about, are you a co-op or are you a business? Businesses exist to make profit.
Is this 6 Figure Studio, is this for pole dancing?
Yeah, she's a pole studio owner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's now gone on to like a leadership, like doing leadership consulting, I guess.
Okay.
Because think about it. Pole studios probably don't have the money to invest in consultants to help make their businesses better. Pole studios at the end of the day, and this is probably not the political correct term for it, but are generally speaking mum and dad businesses, which means there is like probably one person running it or one person and their partner running it, and their business exists purely as, I'm going to say lifestyle, but lifestyle from a point of putting food on the table, paying their rent, paying their mortgage. That's what their money gives them.
Because you constantly hear people say, oh, you don't go into this career to make money. You hear that constantly. So it's like, if you wanted to make it a passion of yours, is that possible to be able to, how do we, and I guess that's where our questions have sort of come from. It's like, how do you do that?
Yeah. And I think this is why your why is important. You need to remember why you started, what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and remembering and this is like for those students out there, this is important. Remembering this is a business. If this business does not make money, this business does not exist.
Yeah.
So especially after we've just gone through all the COVID stuff, if they're not making money because they're prioritizing creating this great community, or you've said their pricing is too expensive, like they are not going to exist. If you keep challenging them to, you know, just not let you pay out the end of your contract or whatever, too many of those things happen, actually puts them in a really bad position.
Yeah.
So policies exist for a reason, and that reason is generally to make some money so they can live and they can still continue to make a studio.
It kind of makes me think, and I don't know if I'm correct with this, is it's like similar to like businesses that say are not for profit, like they still have to cover their expenses and wages and whatnot, but they're like out there for, you know, the community. Like I know I used to work in one that like was more like charity based, not for profit, but at the end of the day they also still needed to pay wages and they still needed to keep the business running, so they had a minimum of what they, and this is a completely different industry.
So a not-for-profit at the end of the financial year need to show that they're not making I haven't been involved in not-for-profits, but they, generally speaking, they're not there to make money to go to, let's say, think about big organizations. Their goal, like a bank, their goal is to make money to give back to shareholders.
Yeah.
Because people have invested in their business and they expect a return. These guys don't expect to make profits. If they make profits, it's expected that it is put back into the business, whether that be, if we think about that from a pole studio perspective, like reinvesting back into the business might be redoing your poles, getting new poles, like refreshing the area because it's a 10-year-old business and it hasn't had a facelift in 10 years. Like
replacing floors. And
making the general place better, or like invest or donating or whatever those things look like. But one thing really rang true with the 6-figure studio is that you are a business and we need to remember you're a business. It's great. I went into being a studio owner because I wanted to make impact, and pole made such a huge impact in my life. So I wanted to be able to do that for more and more people. You'll find that most studio owners are very similar. And they do it because they love it. So which means they're not out to like rip you off. I only say that because I've had these like comments before.
And I think if you've listened to our episode with Dallas D, her, you know, she mentioned on it a little bit and about like, I think it was, there was a little bit of talk before the episode as well, but about, she said that, you know, she knows that she's doing what she loves because
she works so hard in
works
COVID.
so hard and through all COVID and everything like that. So, and
the 2 lockdowns there.
Yeah. So if you're still in it after all this, then you know that you're doing something you're passionate about, and you know that's what you sort of I would rather work, you know, something I'm passionate about than work somewhere that I'm not that passionate but I'm making more money.
And as I reflect back, so I took over the Underwood studio in December 2019. So as they shut down for the year, so I reopened in 2020. Under my management, we went into lockdown on the 23rd of March 2020. So welcome to business, Steph. Here's a lockdown. Here's a global pandemic. I still have zero regrets in making my decision to transfer out of the corporate world where I was, you know, up for some pretty big promotions, which meant pretty big money, to then come down and run a studio because I seen the impact it can make. So I just think that's really important. What is your why? What is your purpose? If you're a studio that has a mission or a vision, go back to that, reflect on that often, because that's going to be important when things start to get a little bit tough. But what makes all businesses successful is generally one thing, and that is through understanding your customer and figuring out how you can relieve their pain points. So with any business, whether it's a product or service, you're there to serve somebody, right? So who is your customer? And then what are their pain points? And how can you create, let's say, the Panadol to relieve their pain points? So when you think about understanding your customer, why do they come to the studio? So we went through a process last year where we actually surveyed or our customers. And through that, we ask like, what do they do for work? Why did they come to the studio? What do they love about it? What do they get out of it? And we actually created, I guess 3 profiles is probably the best word to use. And that is 3 people who we commonly see, like 3 behaviors we commonly see throughout the studio. So the reason we did that was because now we can intimately know who our customer is and how we serve them. Another really good thing is, and we talked about this a lot going through that process, is you don't have to serve everybody. This is really hard mentally. You do not have to serve every single person.
So what about when people say like, the customer's always right?
But the customer, no, that's like, I think I'm like,
no.
One of the things we say to people when they do a podcast with us, don't bang the table. And I'm just like, bang the table. No, the customer is not always right. It's really challenging to run a business in the current environment because the current environment exists with social media and cancel culture. So that's really challenging. So yes, you are going to get customers that might go out there and speak badly about you. But are they your customer? I remember when we changed pricing last year, and we'll get into pricing a little bit later. We changed pricing and I got it really wasn't, I don't think it was that bad of a change, but you have to remember when it comes to money, emotions are involved.
Yeah.
So with emotions, you just don't know how that's going to be triggered. But I got a lot of feedback which insinuated my decision was wrong. But I'm at the end of the day, and guys, don't take this as me being forceful. I'm the one running the business. I'm the one that sees the overall way of how it runs. I'm the one who understands the expenses that need to be paid to run it. And I understand what I need to serve my customer. And the biggest reason around our pricing change was because it was actually really difficult to sell.
Yeah.
Like people were walking in, they're like, so I get this thing and I get this thing and like, I don't get it.
Confusing.
Like, what do I do? It's like, okay, I needed to remove the confusion.
Yeah.
So anyway, the customer, you need customers to make money, but you need to know which customers you are serving, because if you can serve these customers really, really, really well, they are going to pay you because they see value. So value add is important. How are you adding value into these people's lives? So a really good example is one of our customer profiles is, the person who wants to reinvent themselves. They may have been through a divorce. They may have had like a really bad relationship. They may be really struggling with who their identity is currently because of a triggering event. So they're like, I want to reinvent myself. So they end up doing pole dancing because it's different and it's fun and it's sexy. So they might be able to touch into their sexy side. So, but we know for them that money could potentially, because they're going through quite a big life change, money could potentially be a problem. So they're probably going to be the type of student who is on our lowest type of membership. But those 2 hours to them, because our lowest membership is 2 classes, those 2 hours to them are probably some of the most important 2 hours during the week, because that's their mental escape. So when they walk through my studio, I expect that they are greeted. This sounds really like, I'm really not that bad as a leader, but I expect that they are greeted by a smiling face behind reception. I expect that when they come to the class, they are challenged to a point where they feel like they've achieved something. And that the instructor has built rapport with them, that they can understand that they're not going through a great time and they could help them. They understand that this is their hour for them and they walk out feeling good about themselves. So that is that particular customer. But I know that person in such detail that I know that we can cater to them, and they're one of the people who I'm catering to. So we have 3 of those because there's a lot of people that come through the studio and there's a lot of different personalities. Yeah.
And did you find these by surveying the studio? Is that how you found these customers, or you decided that this is the sort of customers
there was I've spent a lot of time obviously in the studio, so there's a lot of observation there. I can see, because people aren't going to, like, if I'm like, which type of person are you reinventing yourself? Are you doing this? Like, that's not how you survey. Like, you can survey to get an overall idea, and like through the comments in the survey, I could understand why they came to pole. So like what is the best thing you get out of pole? Like, why do you enjoy coming to our studio? And then you do have to do a little bit of reading through the lines. Guys, this takes time. There are some resources out there that can help you identify who your ideal customers are. And I'll see if I can find them and share them in the notes for those who are studio owners. But I think the biggest takeaway from understanding your customer is you know how you add value to their life, and you know they will pay you every single week because you add them awesome value every single week.
Yeah. So say if someone is like wanting to start a studio from scratch, because every area would be different, right? So one area, obviously you've got areas which are a bit lower socioeconomic, a bit higher, beachy environments compared to city environments, compared to different countries. Like if you was like, oh, I want to create a studio that just trains elite people to become elite athletes. But then, how would you start a studio? Would you then just research the area, or like how would you then go ahead and decide what area to go into for people that are starting from scratch?
Did you have to pick elite athletes?
Sorry, I'm just like...
Okay. No, but my first thing I would do is I would hang out with elite athletes.
Yeah, okay.
I would go, if you were starting from scratch and you're really serious about this and you want to do it in this way, like, you know what, if you want to run a pole dancing studio, you find an area that doesn't have a pole dancing studio and you pop a pole dancing studio there.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to do that, I would go to the area. In that area, I would hang out with these people. I would understand what these people's behaviors are. What do I would stalk them on Facebook or Instagram. What type of profiles are they following? What are they interacting with on their social media? Then I would look at the area. You can actually do searches that will tell you what the average age in a particular area is, especially now that census has just been done. When that data starts coming out, you'll get a better idea. And then I would look to see where pole studios exist. Go for a drive in that area. Are they all old people? Probably not your market. Like, is it like, I'm going to use Bribey Island as an example here. It's like where people go to die. Like it is like retirement living. But that's what a lot of people do. So like,
relaxed community. There's like 1 or 2 gyms over there, but they don't look very big or successful. There's no big company name gyms.
So see, you need to hang out in the area, right? And understand what that area is like. And that would be what I would be doing. And there was at one point that I was looking at opening a studio from scratch, and that's exactly what I did. I had to look at the thing. I actually knew the area quite well because I grew up in and around it. So I was like, I get who the people are. I understand what type of socioeconomic status they would have. So I already understood that. So I didn't have to go into that detail. But that's what I would do. If I wanted to train elite athletes, I would hang out with elite athletes.
Should you then, though, keep an open mind then? So if that was not the case, if you had an area and you were getting other sort of, like you were saying before, understanding your customer, adjusting to them.
You need to know how to pivot.
Exactly. So again, at the end of the day, it's like you're wanting to run a studio, and yes, you have your ideas of what you want to do, but then you also need to know what people are coming for. And like, for example, that's why I'm like, why'd you pick elite athletes? Like that percentage of people in amongst the pole world is going to be very small. So that percentage amount, like you want to have super high prices to cater to that, to keep yourself open. But I guess you need to know that, because I know that as, a pole dance instructor myself, was like, I would really like to focus my energy on training people for competitions and whatnot. But then a lot of the people, or most of the privates I have now, some of them are just like, they just want to be there and doing stuff and for fun. They don't want to take it anywhere. They just, and so it kind of just pushed me into a different direction.
So then you have to understand a different type of customer and like, who are you serving? And it also depends how you market yourself. If you're not marketing yourself to elite athletes, if you're showing people who are, I'm going to use the word average here, like an average woman in your marketing, or an average man, you're going to attract average people, because when people look at marketing, they're looking for themselves in your marketing. If they're an elite athlete, they want to see like freaking epic pole dancers because that's what they want to be. So they need to be able to see that and notice that. That marketing is a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to understand and you need to be willing to pivot. What I mean by pivot is, let's take COVID as an example. Our studios literally overnight got shut down. We and most people had to go online, and you need to be ready to go with what life throws you. If you're not, you probably just need to realize where you're willing to go for your studio, and that's okay, and just making that decision and being okay with that. But yeah, like pivoting is all about seeing what is coming organically is probably a good word. Being able to analyze it and go, is this something that I want to do?
Interesting.
Yeah. So understanding your customer, obviously, as I alluded to, leads into student experience. I call it student experience. If you listen to it in like the business world, think customer experience. If you look at all the major businesses out there at the moment, they are hiring customer experience specialists. So what that means is they want these people to come in. Generally, it's a research function where they come in, they research their customers and they understand them really well, and then they can determine what products to create through understanding their customers. So this is really important for any single business. This is the one, like, you need to, or actually there's two things, and one of them sort of my belief, but if you read things, I'll say like customer experience is probably the most important thing, because if you don't have customers, you don't have money. Yeah. So, but I think my instructor experience is almost, if not as important. I need to be able to, that's a little bit harder to manage because that's leadership skills. Yeah. But if you have a happy team, they're generally going to put off happiness throughout. Like it's going to spread it.
And I guess at the end of the day, if you have a studio that only you're teaching, then you're just doing what you do naturally, and that's fine. But if you have a team or if you have staff underneath you, you want them to be able to give off the same, have their own individualized way of doing it, but give off the same message as what you want.
If you have a team, I would recommend you have a mission so people can relate back, like, am I living the mission of the studio? Am I living up to the culture of the studio? Yeah. Like, what is it that you want your studio to be? Leading people in the pole world is quite challenging because a lot of them are not there full time. So it's very rare. But anyway, instructor experience is something to keep in mind, but let's go back to customer experience. So again, like I said, it is, what happens from the moment they see you to the moment they get through your door. Have you ever gone on and tried to book a free class with yourself? Or like how do customers come to you? Have you ever gone and actually seen what that experience is like?
And can I just butt in here one
sec? You go for it.
So I just did a full drive course on the weekend. Yes. Yay me. That was the most stressful experience of my life, but we won't get into that. And the reason I had chose the particular company I went through, there was two different companies, is because I had a better experience. And, me and Steph do talk about this quite a lot, about the whole student experience, but I didn't even think about it at the time. And I was talking to both of these, and one of them were replying. I was saying about how nervous and anxious I was, and that I was going by myself. And one company was like really reassuring and gave me lots of information, and the other one would take over a whole day to reply, and then just real basic stuff, and weren't really answering my questions how I kind of wanted.
And how did you feel when they weren't answering your questions the way you wanted?
Well, they were answering them to like just the most basic level, whereas the other company kind of went above and beyond, and gave me more. So they answered my question, and then also kind of thought ahead about what else I might be thinking about, or how else. So, and then the one I went with, they were actually the more expensive, and I was actually leaning to the cheaper one to start with, obviously because of price. But then I was just like, no, I'm going to pay more because I just have a better feeling about this. And I had an amazing experience the whole weekend. I'm so glad. And obviously I don't know the other company, they could have been okay, but just from that initial contact, and that was just all over like email.
It's so important.
Yeah. And especially when if you have competition out there, like now in the pole world, there are a lot more studios around. Previously, you have a studio, you had a monopoly in the area because there was nothing else. So you didn't have to try as hard. One, to get people. Like it was just like you were the only one. So if anyone was going to try pole, it was probably going to be you.
Yeah, generally speaking, when people, like we ask when people come in, it's like, how'd you find us on Google? Like we were the closest studio to them. Generally speaking, you're going to attract people within your area.
Definitely.
But word of mouth is so powerful. You need to be able to create those experiences so the people who walk through your doors go, that was really freaking awesome. Like, I'm going to go grab Jane, my friend, and we're going to come back and do another free class or whatever, because I think she's going to love this and we can do it together. So have you ever tried to book a free class? However you start in your studio, we have a free trial. Have you ever tried to book that with yourself?
And also like realizing that it is quite a nerve-wracking thing for people to start pole dancing, like something that, you know, we've had people say that they've been thinking on it for a year. We've had mums that have their daughters in the studio and they said, I've been sitting out in the car for 6 months waiting for my daughter to finish and I never had the courage to come in myself. Or people have actually rocked up 5 times but then never got out of their car and drove away. Like when you understand what people can go through just to walk through the door, it is so important. Whereas, you know, some other businesses it might not be the same, but like with pole in particular, you might, like, that is a big factor.
And I think reflecting back on why you started, or well, not why you started pole, but your first experience, I nearly drove away from my first experience. Like, so I think you're right. Like people, well, you are right.
Thank you.
People get really anxious about starting pole. So empathy is important. Like, you know, going like, yeah, like I've been in your shoes before, but you know what? We've experienced this. We're going to make sure that your experience is really good too. I'm going to be here if you're not. Or like, for example, we generally have a receptionist. Like Lou's going to be there to greet you. She's going to make sure you feel comfortable. If you have any questions, if you're unsure, just have a chat to her.
Making it personal as well. By names and
exactly, and really using the names and using the people who are going to be taking the trial or they're taking the first class. Like, yep, I'll let Renee know that you're new if it's not a free trial, and like they feel like they're taken care of more. So this all comes into customer experience, and this is all built from understanding your customer really, really well. So coming all the way back to the beginning, who is your customer? How do you serve them, and how do you add value to them? And then, you know what, when you do this work and you understand it, your marketing comes off the back of it. I understand that people want fun fitness, and I say that in quotation marks because that's generally how we're labeled. So I'm going to make sure that my fitness looks the funnest on Instagram. It's effort you need to lay down, and it takes time. But if you can create these profiles and really understand them and talk to these people, and even if it's just like, I'm going to be the best studio for, I'll use our example, reinventors. Like people come here to have this experience. Let's think about the S factor of strip down, rise up. So what was it was odd to us, but her experience was having this immersion couple of weeks where you're going to break down your emotional barriers.
And this is the Netflix.
This is a Netflix documentary.
Documentary that we're talking about.
Yeah, so she knew who her people were and she catered to them really, really well. So
that's so true, because there was a lot of mixed feedback about that documentary being like, it doesn't actually, you know, really show what pole is about. It doesn't show our experience or ours or this or that. And it's like, well, hang on a second. Maybe that just goes to show we are so diverse within the pole world, and we do all have different experiences. And even through us creating this podcast, like we have had people reach out from all over the world going, oh, is this normal? This is what I experience in my studio. And, you know, just like being able to hear those stories all around, that there is so much diversity in the studios, even though like it's also a thing that brings us all together.
Yeah. And I think you made a really valid point there. You look and see what's around. You should always understand what's around. And you yourself should go have new experiences, like go try CrossFit, go take Pilates. How were you greeted? How did you feel? Go to another studio. Like, it's not that you're ripping their ideas off. It's you are understanding their experience. And I think that. The only way you're going to understand experience is by experiencing the experience.
And it's funny when you do have a really good experience, like obviously at Pole, like we're very chirpy and happy. And now when I go and walk into places and someone's just like, hey, I'm like, excuse me? Like you're not going to be like overly friendly with me. And, you know, like especially
cater to me.
I haven't tried like some stuff in a while, but all those fun places, like say the theme parks, like Dream World, do it really well because you walk in there and they've got someone dressed up and they're like, hey, how you doing today? And like, are you ready to have fun? Like those are the places that are like the real fun places, and like, I don't know, like some rock climbing or really bizarre places, but sometimes you walk into a gym or you could walk into a yoga or Pilates
and nobody even greets you.
I've had feedback from students about, you know, when they've moved away and trying other studios and just saying it's not the same vibe, I don't know what it is, and then coming back and being like, nobody talks in class, nobody laughs, like, you know, it's so different to what, you know, you guys do here. And I guess that, again, like Steph said, it's to the area and what people are used to, and
what you want to be as a studio.
And what you want to be,
if you want to have classes where people don't talk, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Like it's whatever you want.
So true.
What is your vision and what are you trying to create and who are you trying to serve?
Yeah.
But I do want to move on to pricing because this does answer the question around profitable studios. You need to price yourself appropriately. I feel like this is really challenging in Pole, and I feel like the world tells you you're too expensive all the time. And another thing, I'm going to throw a generalization out here. Probably the bulk of studio owners are females. And females, statistically speaking, are not very good at setting their rate and asking for money.
Yeah.
So when you look at your pricing, there's a couple of things that need to come into play. What does it actually cost you to run a class? Just do an average, right? Like, what does it cost you to run? Actually, no, this is going into too much detail. I don't want to go there. I'm like, I've changed my mind. I'm taking a step back. But what value do you add? So when I went and did our pricing last year, one of my biggest things was I looked at my team. My team is extremely experienced. They have a lot of years, like, because we've got a lot of people who have been there for a very long time. I'm like, you are not walking in and having we do get new instructors, but they're trained. But you're walking into very experienced individuals who are training you on pole.
And often people that have expertise outside of just a pole qualification as well.
Yes, exactly. So looking at my team and going, these guys actually create extreme amounts of value because of their experience. If I want to pay them more because they're worth it, then I need to charge more. And you guys are getting, you guys as in like the people who visit the studio are getting a really good experience.
Yeah.
So when I changed my pricing, I didn't go outrageous, but we did change the overall structure. So it was, like I said before, when reviewing your pricing, you need to remember this is emotional. You are going to get backlash. I don't know how many times I've given somebody our prices, brand new people, and they've told me I'm too expensive. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not even the high end for pole. So what that tells me is this person has not experienced the value of which we create to see value in my pricing. I almost guarantee they come in, they have a really good experience, they'll see value in what we charge.
Yeah.
And you need people, if you create a good experience for that individual, they're not going to care how much you charge them. They're just going to be like, just keep taking the money out because I see value here.
Yeah.
This helps my anxiety. This helps my depression. This helps me get fit. This helps me make friends. And I value those things. So I'm okay to pay that. The other thing too is to not be afraid to move away from an unlimited model.
Yeah.
And I say that purely from if you're going to have the students who are going to, and we talked about this on the podcast with Simone, have the students who are going to do 10 to 15 classes a week, they're going to go into an overuse situation, and then they're going to potentially injure themselves.
And then they're going to cancel, and then you don't have them as a customer anymore, or
Exactly.
a student.
Yeah. So these are ways that you can prevent those things from happening. Obviously, you can't prevent everything. But yeah, when it comes to your pricing, are you priced appropriately? If you want, have a look at your competitors. That is a way to do a pricing analysis, see what they're charging. You'll find that most studios are charging, well, when I've done it, very similar amounts. And what I found really interesting is studios have not really increased their prices since I started, and I started in 2012.
Yeah.
And when you think from a business perspective, and this might go over a couple of people's heads, is there's this thing called inflation, whereas like the cost of living improves every year, and they still haven't changed their prices. So bringing it back for the students who are listening, keep that in mind. Like, these guys are trying to maintain their prices, and I think because we feel that we're still quite niche, that we can't charge these big grand prices, but we offer a goddamn great service.
But because we're quite niche as well, there is like, to be an instructor and to have experience as an instructor, it takes years, and you can't just buy that.
No.
You have to, like, that's a lot of time invested into that as well. So
yeah. And the problem solving that they pick up from years of experience.
Exactly. And so if you do go to a studio that has someone with, you know, that has that experience, you know, you probably would expect it to be a little bit more expensive. Or, you know, if you were to try and go do private lessons with instructors, you'll find that instructors are different, like, levels of price.
Yeah.
Because of that, would be the same thing.
Yeah. And I think, when you find a product you love, you're going to, like, let's use a skincare.
I was just about to say makeup and skincare.
Yeah. You get this skincare that just absolutely clears your blemishes, but it's going to cost you $200 a pop.
Yeah. You're
probably going to do it because you want clear
skin. You're not going to buy the cheap, like, Coles brand ones.
No, yeah. So, and it's the same with Pole. If you value it, you will pay it. And, like, to studio owners out there, if they value the experience you create, they will pay it. It's going to hurt though. And it does hurt when people give you feedback on pricing.
Yeah.
Because then you start second guessing yourself to be like, am I doing the right thing? And then you have to go back to your why. It's like, why am I here? It's like, well, I want to create a community, but I still need to run a business, and I actually want to live. And there's all these other things that come into play.
So then how does someone, like a studio owner, go about learning this sort of stuff? Is there free resources? Should they get a mentor? Should they get a business coach? Like, is that going to be a lot more money?
Look, they're all great suggestions, and yes, my answer to them is yes, but I think the reality is that they can't necessarily afford it.
Yeah. Exactly.
To get a business coach in can be quite expensive, and then to understand Pole. And, like, studio owners are generally the marketing, the HR, the accounting, the finances, accounting, the leader, the curriculum setter. They're doing a lot of jobs. Business coach, great idea. Probably not within your scope of budget. Yeah. So, look, I think I'm more than happy for people to reach out to me and ask me questions. So through the Uncovered page or through my personal Instagram, because I've been through this, and I've been through this from an academic sense. I've also experienced this through my own studio. But I also have seen a lot of other businesses do a lot of different things. But yeah, they're all great things. There are a lot of free resources, and I'll put some just basic stuff to start getting you guys thinking about your customers in this. So let's just keep this one about customer experience.
Yeah.
And I'll give you guys some resources to that in the links below. I'll find some that I've used in the past and some free versions of that.
But it sounds like pretty much what we've been talking about and what you've been saying, it does all come back to that customer experience, because if a customer's happy, they're going to keep coming back. They're going to buy your products. They're going to pay your membership. So
they're going to be loyal.
At the end of the day, to make a studio profitable is to make sure your customers are happy. Not necessarily always saying every customer is always right, but you need to understand who you're serving, who's coming to your studio, and what you want to do, as well as obviously you touched on the instructors as well. So I guess maybe it's about like really reflecting on all that and just not walking through it mindfully.
Yeah. And I think if you've already got an existing studio, go like the next couple of times you're in, talk to the people and be like, you know, like, it's great seeing you here. Like, why do you love coming? Like, or I don't know, maybe not that's not the question.
But you don't have
like,
to do every single thing, every feedback that is given.
No. Oh yeah. I've gotten some feedback and I'm like, not logical. Like
what there was one we had asked students if they could do anything at all. What was that question? They could do anything, change anything.
If you could change anything to the studio, what would you change?
Like anything at all.
I got asked to put on another level or buy the building next door. Or
if heaps of customers were like, we need another room, or we need another level on top, or we need bathrooms or whatever. Like, and you know, if one person says it and you're kind of like, oh, look, it's just not really, you know, feasible. But then if everyone's saying, it's like, okay, well, why do they think that they need another room? Is there not enough spaces in the classes? Like, you know, so I guess it's
a really good example is like, we don't have mirrors in one of our rooms, and I've like looked at the space. I've literally stood in it and I'm like, I put a mirror there, they're probably going to hit it. I put a mirror there, they're probably going to hit it. Like, it's just, it's not possible with the current setup. But feedback, you need to be able to look at it objectively. And it's really hard because this is your space. This is an extension of your brand. This is you, generally speaking, in the studio. So it's really hard not to take it personal. And I just want you to know, if you do take it personal, it is okay. It's then letting those emotions settle and then looking at it again and going, okay, what are they trying to say to me here? And like, if you create enough of a feedback loop, you're going to get some real good gems in, and you just need to be able to see that. But understand who your customers are. Look around the room. Ask your instructors, like, what are the experiences they're having with customers? And then from there, you can create these profiles, and then you can start targeting them, and really making sure your marketing's hitting it. You might need to change your class structure to be like, just slightly. If they're like, we come here for dance, and like most people just want to dance, but you guys are doing 50-minute conditioning classes and 10-minute dance classes. Can you shift that? Like, there's a lot of things that can come into play, but understanding them first and foremost. If you are concerned about your profit and loss, that is looking at where you're making money and where you're spending money as well. So just have a look at that and see if there's an expense that isn't necessary. And are you pricing yourself appropriately, I think, is the next question to ask yourself.
Wow. There was a lot in that episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, this is just like the top of it. You can see, if you're on YouTube, you can see me just rubbing my face. Like,
and you probably see my face a bit confused at points. But I think that Steph has done a really good job at just doing a really like basic overview.
Thank you.
And like pole is for passion, but I think more people are getting out there and making it a bit more profitable.
Yeah. The industry is in such a growth phase. So there's different phases in business, right? You've got like, is it immature, and then you go into your growth phase, then you get to mature, and then there's a decline, right? We're still growing. So we haven't even hit our neutral point
and
yet.
There'll be so much more, like innovation has already happened over the last few years with everything you've seen coming out, all the training programs. Like we didn't even, when I started, there was nothing really to train you to become an instructor. You were just, it was the other instructors trained you to become an instructor. Yeah. So there's so much potential out there as well. I think just keeping an open mind is probably a really important aspect.
Yeah. If you're a studio owner, it's been really difficult, and no, you're not alone. And you are doing the best you can do, and sometimes you just need some help to be able to see it clearly. If you are a student, if your studio has policies and procedures in place, please be respectful of them. If they have a cancellation policy, it's there for a reason. If they have anything else, it's there for a reason, and respect them. Because I think we do struggle with this community and business element. And if we can all play our part, it makes the overall experience.
And if you have an issue with something, then talk to them and give them some constructive feedback if you think that you know that could help.
If you think like a 3-day cancellation period is not
enough.
reasonable
Yeah.
or whatever for in terms of like cancelling out of a class without losing it, then give them that feedback. I think opening that line of communication is important, and feedback is always both ways.
Definitely.
Cool. All right, guys. So that is our episode for business in studios. The start of it. There's a lot there. If you have any questions for me in regards to business in particular, you can obviously hit us up at uncovered.pd, or you can send me a message on my private Instagram, which is Steph_APF. I'm like, what is my handle? I'm more than happy to talk business. Love it. Geek out over it a lot. We will be talking about business all this week on the Instagram, and we want to hear what you guys are thinking and if you found this valuable. Also, we're on YouTube, guys, so come watch us as well. Please subscribe, share if you like. You can check out Renee waving to you like the queen right now. And maybe I was like, show us your tits.
Might give you a sneaky flash. You just have to watch YouTube to find out.
All right, guys, until next time. See you soon.